going to record this, so I think there are lots of people who will be watching the recording, but we'll get started here today at the Flywheel webinar series. Leading today's webinar will be Momita Das, one of our customer success engineers here at Flywheel. Many of you may have already met her, as she's the technical lead for many of our accounts. And today she will be talking about the Flywheel CLI and giving some of the basics and introduction to that. And so I will hand it over to Momita. Oh, and then I did post in the chat window. Make sure to ask any questions you like, and I will moderate them. And when we pause for questions, I will ask them when we do that. And for sure, at the end, we will leave some time for questions, or hang on as long as we want to stick around to answer any questions about the CLI or Flywheel in general. So with that, now I will turn it over to Momita.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome to Introduction to Flywheel CLI webinar. My name is Momita Das. I'm the Customer Success Engineer with Flywheel. And this webinar is intended for anybody who's either new to Flywheel or is getting started with the Flywheel command line tool. So what are we going to be covering in the next 45 minutes? So we're going to be talking about the Flywheel hierarchy, the different data management options available in Flywheel, how I can install my command line tool. I'll give you some pointers on some basic CLI commands, learn how to navigate the Flywheel hierarchy using the ls command, then how to bring in data or upload data in Flywheel, and the last, how to export data out of Flywheel. So let's get started. So this is a nice picture I like to begin with. It exactly tells you how the data gets mapped into the Flywheel hierarchy. So on the topmost level, we have the site. It is the instance to everybody connects to. It can be a university site, or it can be an instance that everybody's going to be logging into. So for example, we have a customer UCI, and they have a Flywheel installed uci.flywheel.io. So everybody in that organization would be connecting to that Flywheel instance. Next, we have the group, and group can be a lab or a virtual team that are going to be conducting a studies. And then we have projects, the study, and then subjects is any the participant of that study. So any project specific research subject. Next is the session level. And the session is basically any interaction that you have with that subject. So it's a subject's visit. It can be an exam performed on that subject. Basically, a single time in and out of an MR scanner is also a session. Next is the acquisition, and acquisition is basically any data that is collected during that session. So it can be a T1 MPRH sequence or one fMRI task run. Data can start residing from that project level down onwards. So you have project, subject, sessions, and acquisitions. So data can reside in any of these layers. By data, I mean files, metadata, and analysis. And project, subject, sessions, and acquisitions, they are each their own container. So we call them containers too at times. So what are the data management options available in Flywheel? So we have a web interface which has a web uploader capability. So the screenshot on the right, you can see how you can, it's a drag and drop, have your images dropped into that link, and then basically you have to mention the project, and then it'll get uploaded to that particular project. The screenshot on the bottom shows us the other option, which is our command line interface tool. We also call it CLI. So the screenshot on the bottom is an example of that, how it looks like. What is the advantage of using a CLI? Basically, if you have a very large data set or you have a lot of sessions in your data set, then we always recommend to use the command line interface for uploading data. Another reason being that the web UI has limitations. So you cannot upload more than 10,000 dicom files or more than 200 MB of data at a time via the UI. This is a browser limitation and not a Flywheel limitation. Just wanted to clarify on that. So for larger data sets, it's recommended to use the CLI. The CLI also gives you a lot of advanced scripting, or you have different more advanced import options in CLI, which are not there in UI. So that is another reason why it's important to know or learn CLI, because it has more features to it. The next slide, I'm going to be talking about like how you can get the CLI installed. And before that, I just want to point you to this documentations link that I've kind of put down in the slide. This is where we have all our repository of articles on Flywheel and the different how-to guides. So good to be aware of. So for installing the Flywheel command line interface, first of all, you need to be able to log in to the UI. Once you are logged into the UI interface of your instance, on the upper right-hand corner, if you click on profile, as you can see in the screenshot on the right, if you click on that profiles page, you would see the CLI installer available there. So you can see we have one for Linux OSs, OS X, and for Windows operating system. We also have an article that is the command line. That's the command line interface article, how to install guide. And I myself like to use that when I'm installing the command line interface. So the step one is pretty much what I talked to you about. It is, you go into UI, go to the profiles page. You would see the zip file available for any of the OS that you're going to be downloading that file to. Select the file, the installer, basically run that installer, and once the file is installed, then you would have to log into the UI, and then again back to the profiles page. There is a section, API key section. In the API key section, initially you will have no API keys in it, so it'll be blank. Click on that generate API key, and an API key will appear. Copy that API key, command line interface prompt, type in FW and FW login, and then paste your API key. So you can see an example here. We have FW login and then university.flywheel.io, and this big string is the API key. You plug that in, and you should be able to install, you should be able to log into a command line. So just to let you guys know that, the API key is specifically generated for your Flywheel site. So if somebody else is connecting, they would have a separate API key for them. So once your Flywheel CLI is installed, a few basic CLI commands worth to be aware about is one is the -h help flag, and you can use it with any command, and it'll tell you exactly what are the available command options and flags that are available for that command. I myself like to use it when I'm not sure about the command syntax and I would want to verify that, so I use that in those scenarios. The next command is the fw version command, and it shows us the CLI version. So if you have to upgrade your CLI and you need to find out what's the current CLI version you're running on your instance, you can just type in fw version, and it'll just give you the CLI version. So the version that that this screenshot was taken from is 10.2.0. On the right side corner, you'll see we also have a UI version, and you'll find the UI version if you are connected to the UI on the upper right corner. There is this question mark. If you click on that, you find the UI version. Earlier, we used to have a different UI version and a CLI version, but from moving forward, we're trying to stick to a single versioning for both the CLI and for the UI. The next command is the fw status command. It tells you that you're currently logged into an instance, and it'll exactly tell you what user and what instance you're logged into. So if I do an fw status, it shows that I'm logged into this training.ce.flywheel.io instance. The next command to be good to know is fw logout. All it does is it deletes your saved API key. So next time when you log in, you would have to do an fw login and plug in that API key from your profiles page, and you should be able to log in then. Now we're going to be talking about this ls command. So this helps you navigate the flywheel hierarchy, the hierarchy that we talked about. And I have a small demo here that I can show you how we can use that ls command. So this is a command line interface tool, how it looks like. So I'm on a Flywheel CLI instance. I type in fwls, and it'll show me exactly how many groups I have permissions for. So all the column on the right shows me all the groups that I have permissions for, and on the left I can see what permissions they are. So for some groups I have administrative rights, for the others I don't. So now, if I want to dig in deeper, if I want to find out what projects I have for a particular group, I can also do that using that fwls command. So I just type in fwls and then that group name. And I can see that this particular group has just one project assigned to it. And it'll also tell you the permission on that project. So amygdala structure is my project assigned to my CE team group. Now, if I further want to know how many subjects are there in that project, I can also do that. I have to just type in fwls CE team, the project name, and it'll show me the project, the number of subjects in that project. So I have just one subject for this project. But it'll also show me any attachment files that were attached in that project level. So I have this license.txt file, which is an attachment on that project container for amygdala structure. Now, if I want to see how many sessions I have for the subject S3, I can also do that. I just copy that subject and add it to my command string. And it'll show me the number of sessions I have. So for this one, I just have one session. It'll also give you the timestamp. And if I want to see how many acquisitions, I can also do that. For this particular session, I just plug in the session that I want to look how many acquisitions it has. And it'll show me all the acquisitions. It'll also show me any attachments that are there in that container. So in this case, I have a license-free text file, which is an attachment on that session container. So I can, it'll also show me that information using this ls command. One thing to note here is that like ls commands in Unix or Linux, where it auto completes, this one doesn't have that functionality. So the best way would be either to copy and build on that path, or you'll have to type it manually. Any questions so far?
Nothing quite yet, but a reminder to any attendees that please use the chat to ask questions, and we'll pause and ask and answer them occasionally. So, all right, continue.
Okay, so now we have got our CLI installed. We know some of the basic commands to work with the CLI. Now is the part of bringing in data in Flywheel. So before starting data loading into Flywheel, there are a few things that you need to be aware of. One is how your data is organized locally. And second is how your data will be mapped in Flywheel hierarchy. By that, I mean is, what is going to be your project label? What is going to be your subject, session, acquisition labels? You need to understand how the data is going to be mapped into the Flywheel hierarchy. And the third thing that you need to be aware about is the size of your data. So are we talking about a single file which just goes in as an attachment to any of these containers, or is it a data set? And we have different commands. Based on that, we'll have different ways of bringing in data, or different commands for bringing in data in Flywheel. And I'm going to elaborate on that as we go along in the next slide. So if you have just single files that need to be added as attachments, you would use the fw upload command. And if you have a data set or more than one number of files, you would use the fw import command method of bringing in data. So how does this fw upload command work? So if you have a single file that needs to be uploaded, the screenshot on the right will show you how that particular fw command is used. So you do an fw upload, and then you have to specify the destination path where the file is going to be uploaded. So it's the location on Flywheel where it's going to on what container or what location it's going to be attached to. And then the local file is where you're bringing in the data from and what's the name of that file. So I have an example of that. So here I have a license.txt file, and I want to attach it to my amygdala structure project on that project level. So I just type in fw upload, I specify the destination path, which is the CE team / amygdala structure, and then I specify the file name. License.txt. To verify if the upload worked correctly or not, I can type in that fwls command for that project, and I can verify. I can see that the file was attached to that amygdala structure project container. With this command, I can also upload, attach files on a subject level or a session level. All I have to do is I have to tweak the destination path. So if I'm uploading a file on a subject level, I type in the group ID, the project label, and then I have to specify the subject to which that file is going to get attached to. Similarly, I can attach it to a session. In that case, my destination path would be the group ID, the project label, the subject label, and the session label to which that data would be attached. That file would be attached to. The next command is the fw import command. This is for bigger data sets or where you have more than one files. And there are two ways the fw import command works is with two logics. So we have one, which is the directory scanners, and the other one is the structured folder method. So the logic of the directory scanners and the way they work is that they basically look through your file structure or your data set, and they are trying to look for a particular file type. So for example, the FW import dicom is looking for the dicom file type. And the other one, the FW import parrec, is looking for the file type parrecs. So that's how the directory scanners work. The structured folder, the way those commands work is that they are looking for a definite folder structure. And they're going to use that folder structure to map the data to the Flywheel hierarchy. So FW import folder command is looking for a data structure or a data hierarchy that is exactly similar to the Flywheel hierarchy. If you have data that is in bid structure, you can use the FW import bids command for that. Similar for bruker, and then if none of the above commands working for you, then you can use the FW import template. It's a more flexible and more powerful command, so you can specify the rules, customize it, and then you can use that to import the data. So now we'll pick up each of these commands individually. So first one is the directory scanners, and the first directory scanner command is the FW import dicom. So as I said, it's looking for a specific file type, and the dicom importer is basically scanning the directory tree for this .dcm files. One thing to note here is that if you have zip files, it's not going to work. It has to be .dcm files if you're using that FW import dicom commands to bring in data in Flywheel. How does the data get mapped to the Flywheel hierarchy? Is basically it's using the dicom header fields, and it's using those information to map or to assign that to the Flywheel hierarchy labels. So by that I mean the patient ID in the dicom header becomes the subject label for in the Flywheel hierarchy. The study description dicom header becomes the session label. The series description becomes the acquisition label. You can see that there is an example of the command syntax for that FW import. So FW import dicom, you just have to specify the location where you have your dicom files. And then you would have to tell the command the group and the project to which this data will get uploaded to. And the rest is going to actually just get from those dicom headers. So here is a quick demonstration on how that command works. So I just type in FW dicom, then I specify my folder. So I just want to show you where my data is. So on my desktop, I have a folder demo_dicom1, and it has about 10 DCM files. Now I need to specify the group and the project to which the data would get mapped, where the data would get uploaded to. So research_group is the group. And then I'll specify the project name. It's the stroke study. Now I can do that, and that should be enough. I can just do that and I enter upload, and it'll upload my, show me the Flywheel hierarchy structure, and it'll upload it. I can also use some optional flags. So for example, I'm going to use a -- subject optional flag, and I'm going to specify the subject name. So what it does is that instead of using that subject information from the subject label from the dicom header, it's actually using the subject name that I have assigned using that -- subject flag. And then I go ahead and hit enter, and it'll show me exactly how the data gets mapped into the flywheel. So you can see that my research group is my group, stroke study is my project, subject 01, it's using the subject 01 label from what I specified and not from that header, dicom header. Then the session label is from the dicom header, and then the acquisition. It'll also show you a scan summary, so you can see exactly how many files are getting uploaded, so I have, and how many labels are getting created. So it's got one group, one project, one subject, one session, one acquisition. You might ask, where did my .dcm files go? Like I had 10 of them. So what this scan import command does is that it zips them up. It zips the .dcm files into a dicom.zip file. And that is accounted as pack file in the scan summary. So you can see in the scan summary, there is one pack file. And that is your the dicom.zip file that's generated. Another thing to note here, and it's very useful, is that you can see just next to the research group, all these hierarchy labels, it says creating. So if that label does not exist in Flywheel, it'll say creating. But if it's already there, so suppose if I already have a group on Flywheel called research_group, or I already have a project named stroke study, then instead of, it will not show you creating, it will rather show you using in that case. So that's something to keep in mind when you're uploading your data, because you will be able to see to what particular project it's getting uploaded to. Is it creating a new project, or is it still uploading to that same project that you wanted to get uploaded to? So now I just say yes, I confirm that everything looks right. And now it's getting uploaded. It'll tell you the rate of upload. I'm just going to speed this up a little. Okay. So at the end, it'll tell you exactly to what project that those files got uploaded to and how much time it took to finish this upload. Another thing that is good to be aware of is that these commands, the fw import dicom, there are some positional flags and there are some optional flags. By positional arguments, I mean that those fields have to be there specified in the command in order for the command to work. So for the fw import dicom, if you see on the right side in the screenshot, the positional arguments is folder, group ID, and project label. So that has to be specified. And the order in which they are specified, that's also important. So you have to specify folder, group ID, and project label in that sequence. The other type of flags are optional flags. So you can use it if you need to do something specific, otherwise it's optional. So some commonly used optional flags to be aware of is the -- subject and the -- session that I already demonstrated how you can use the -- subject one. And what it does, it is just overrides what's coming from the dicom header and rather uses the label that you have specified. The other optional flag, very useful, is the -- debug. You can add it with the fw import dicom command, and it'll exactly tell you, what files are not getting imported. So basically, it does more verbose logging. And the next three are for your de-identification, and I'm going to tackle them in the next slide here. Well, so with the FW import dicoms, you can do de-identification. Now in Flywheel, there are two ways to de-identify. There is a default flag, which is the -- de-identify, which I can use with my FW import dicom command. And all it does is basically applies a default profile. And that default profile basically removes your patient name, patient ID, and patient's date of birth. And then the patient's age would be converted into month. If you want to do more than what is there in the default profile by using the -d identity flag, you can create a profile yourself, and so you can do FW import and then -- profile, and then specify the profile file path. So it's basically a YAML file, and you can write down your de-identification profile in that, and then use that along with that FW importer for additional or advanced DID. This is going to be covered in much more detail in that we are going to have an advanced CLI webinar, so it's going to be covered in that in much more detail. So here is a quick demo on how the DID works with that FW import dicom command. And I'm just going to use the de-identity flag here. So I just do -- de-identify flag, which is the default profile. So another important flag is the -- output - folder. What it does is that it outputs your file to a local directory instead of uploading the data to Flywheel. The advantage of using this is that if I have created a DID profile and I want to test it, whether it's working fine or not, then I specify the -- output folder flag with the path, and then it uploads it to that folder on my local machine instead of uploading it directly to the Flywheel. And then I can go ahead and check if the DID has worked, the profile is working as required, and the fields are de-identified correctly. Then I can just remove that -- output folder and then upload the data directly to Flywheel. So it's an additional step to check whether the data is de-identified correctly or not without uploading the data actually to Flywheel. So here I'm going to be uploading the data to my desktop in a folder called dicoms instead of uploading it directly to Flywheel. I specify the location of my dicom files, specify test group as my group, and stroke study is my project. Another thing is that if you have a project name that has a space in between, you would have to specify that with double quotes around it. Otherwise, it treats them as separate. I don't have any, the one I have, stroke_study, it doesn't have a space, so I don't need to do that. So I go ahead, hit enter, and as you can see, it shows me the Flywheel hierarchy. For the subject label, you can see, which was getting the subject information was getting pulled from the patient ID. And since we use the -did flag, which de-identifies the patient ID, now you can see it shows up as none. And then it'll just give us the scan summary. So it'll show me exactly how many subject sessions and how many pack files were created. And then I just go ahead and upload that data. So it basically uploads this to that dicom directory on my local machine. So now if you have parrec files, which is another file type, we have a specific importer command for that. So we can just do an fw import parrec and then specify the the folder where you have your parrec files, specify the group and project, and this the screenshot on the right will show you exactly how your data would be mapped in Flywheel. We'll have a pack file with the par and the rec files in it, and you can see how the command syntax looks like at the bottom of the screen. So that was all the directory scanner commands. Now we come to the folder structure commands. And as I said before, all the structured folder expects is a well-defined folder structure. And for the fw import folder, it needs to have a directory format, which is exactly like the Flywheel hierarchy. On the right side, you can see how that folder structure would look like. So below your root folder would, whatever folder is there, that folder name will be used as the group ID. The next one would be, the next folder below that would be, the folder name would be used as the project label. Similarly, subjects, sessions, and anything below that would be the acquisition. This command is useful when you are in scenarios when you have your data already in Flywheel and you want to download it and then re-import it on some other instance or to your instance. You can use the fw import folder command. For the folder importer, you do not need to worry about if the files are zipped or not. You can use zip files. You can see this is how the folder syntax, the command syntax looks like. So it's fw import folder. You need to specify, if you want, you can specify optional arguments, but otherwise you need to just specify the folder location. Just take a note that doesn't need the project label or the group ID, because it's actually, it'll be able to pull that information from the folder name. However, if you don't want them to use the group ID and the project label from the folder names, you can do that by using these optional flags, the -- group, specify the group ID, or you can also do a -- project optional flag and specify the project label. So again, I'm back on my command line and I'll show you exactly how I can import using my folder command. So I just do an fw import folder and I specify where my folder is, the location of my folder. So okay, so as you can see here, it'll exactly tell you my hierarchy that the data is getting mapped to. So psychology is my group, and you can see, as what I told you before, is that it's saying using because I already have a group called psychology in my on Flywheel. But then the rest, anxiety study, which is the project, is getting created, and then next one is the subject, then the session, and the acquisitions. So as you can see here, it shows you the scan summary, the project, the groups, the sessions, the acquisitions. So one key difference between the dicom import command and the folder is, in case of dicom importer, we were in scan summary, the .dcm files were zipped into a dicom.zip file, and they were counted in the pack files. So we were seeing one pack file for those 10 zip dicoms. However, here we had the files in .dcm zips, and they would show up as attachments in acquisitions. So we see 29 acquisitions here. And I just said yes, and then now it's just uploading the data. I'm gonna just speed it up a little bit here. And it's done. And we can see that the data set got uploaded to our anxiety study project. And if I log into my UI, this is how the data would look like. You can see it's gone to on the screenshot. The project name is anxiety study, and the lab, the group is psychology, and then you can see the subject, the sessions, and all the acquisitions for that particular session. Now, if you have data in bid structure and you want to import that data as it is in Flywheel so that it has the bids format to it, you can do that. So the command, we have a bids import command for that. So it's fw import bids. You just specify the bids folder location, and you just have to specify the group ID. For this command, you do not need to specify the project. So the screenshot on the bottom is an example. There is a data set on OpenNeuro.org, a bids data set that I'm using for importing to Flywheel. So I just used the fw import bids, and then I specified the folder location with that data set, and then the group that I'm going to be uploading this data to is assigned. This project is going to be assigned to as researcher. One thing to note here is that the way the bids command execution works is different from the other importers. So here you will not see the Flywheel hierarchy map summary, and you'll also not see the scan summary. But once your data gets uploaded, this is how it will appear on Flywheel. So we have a bids view. If you flip to that, you would be able to see your data in bids in Flywheel. One more thing is that if you want to use the project, you can also specify that by the -- project flag. So it'll upload it to that particular project that you want it to be uploaded to. Similarly, like if you have bruker, I mean, we have a bruker importer for that. You can see the command syntax here. It's similar to the other importers. It's just looking for bruker data structure. And then last, if none of the other importers work as per your requirements, then you can do the fw import template, which is more flexible and more powerful. You can define rules for the CLI import for your data, and it works best if you have you mixed data sets. You have if you have dicoms, spreadsheets, and lots of different data formats. fw import template command would be the way to go. We'll be spending a lot of time on this fw import in our advanced webinar series, so I'm not going to be talking about that in this basic CLI webinar course. So that was with how you got the data uploaded to Flywheel. Now, if you need to get data off Flywheel, how to do that? So basically, we have fw download command, which you can use to download a single file or a container as a whole. So basically, all files for your subject, or everything, a complete project. So you can do that with the fw download. The second one is the bids export. So if you have data in Flywheel and bids and you want to export it in the bids data format, you can do that with the fw bids export command. The syntax for that upload command, for the download command for downloading your sessions, acquisitions, or files, You just type in FW downloads, specify the source path of to the files, and specify optional flags. There are two useful optional flags I would point out. One is the -e. So if you just do a -e and specify a file type, it'll only it'll download everything except for that particular file type. So it's like excludes. You can also choose to include a certain file type for downloads. So there is an optional flag -i, and that's you just specify the file type, and it'll just download that particular file type. So this really helps to reduce your download size or the file size. So here is a demo on how we can do that. So I'm again back to that CE team group, and I go back to this amygdala structure project of mine. I have an attachment file there called screeningform_mri.pdf that I want to download. I just type in FW download, copy and paste that path or the location of that file. And it'll say exactly that it's downloaded, and I'll just show you my current, so it'll be downloaded to my present working directory. Now, if I want to download subject, so I have the subject AMYG_S3, and I want to download just a specific everything except Nifty files. I can do that for this particular subject. I could do an FW download, specify the path for that subject container, and then do a -e, and then in quotes Nifty. So what it does, it downloads everything except for the Nifty file. I say yes, and it'll download, it'll write the file into a .tar. So there'll be about 6 files, and it'll exactly tell you what's the data set size. Similarly, for sessions, if I want to just download dicom files, I can also do that, or a particular file type, I can do that. So I just want to show you what acquisitions and what all is there, what attachments are there in that session. So I just did the ls command for that. Now I'm going to change it to downloads. So FW download. The path to the session, and then I just add in -i, specify the file type that I want to download. So it can, if you have just dcm.zip, I can do that in quotes, or in this case, I just want to download just the dicom. So I'm just doing dicom, and it says 4 files would be downloaded. Say yes, and it writes it to a .tar file in my present working directory. So now for the export bids. So you can export your bids data files by preserving the bids format. So the command for that is FW export bids. You specify the project in Flywheel, the destination path or the location where that bids data set would get downloaded to, and any optional flags. So again, back to the command line. So in my researchers group, I have a project with this name, which is a bids project. So if I want to export that, I just do FW export bids. -P is the project name, and then I specify the project name, which is DS0, that name. And then the path, the location, the folder basically where I'm going to download all the files to. So on my desktop, there'll be a bids folder, and in that, the bids data set would get downloaded to. So I'll just cd to that directory bids, and I just do an ls. So these are all my bids file with the sidecars. And that was how you can get data out of Flywheel. Now, this is a new feature which is available from 10.1.0 CLI version onwards, which is the FW sync. And what it does, it allows you to sync your Flywheel data with either your local computer or with an Amazon S3 bucket. It's just a one-directional sync, so data from Flywheel will get synced to your local computer. The first time it syncs in, it'll sync everything. It'll basically create the project, the whole folder structure with the folders. But the next syncs would be pretty much anything that is the difference between the both locations. So between the Flywheel and between your local computer, whatever files are different would only get synced into the local computer location. So on the right side, you can see the command syntax. So it's FW sync, source path, destination path. And I have an example plugged in. It's FW sync, FW psychology, longitudinal anxiety study is my source path. So that's the project from which the data are going to be synced to the local path, and the local path is the destination path, that is a local data and then project one. So it's syncing from longitudinal anxiety study and is syncing to the project one. And similarly, it's the same for Amazon with Amazon S3 bucket. All you need to do is you need to verify that you have an AWS CLI installed with valid credentials, and then you would have to determine your Amazon S3 buckets URL. I have an example here on the right side of an of Amazon S3 bucket URL, and then the syntax for the command is FW sync, source path, destination, and flag. And there's an example here too. It's you just type in FW sync. Source path is the Flywheel location of that project. So it's anxiety study, which is in the project, in the group psychology 2. And then the destination path is that Amazon S3 bucket URL. And that's how you can sync your data from Flywheel to your Amazon S3 bucket. Any questions?
There was one question around that topic. The question was, is there a way to sync or download just analysis output? And I did answer in the chat that that is not, to download or sync just analysis output is not available with the CLI at this time. You'd have to, the analyses are included when you do a full project download and sync. But if you just want the analysis output, that we don't have that capability right now, we're adding it soon. That functionality is available in the Flywheel SDKs and MATLAB and Python SDKs. So that is something to be aware of. We'll be happy to assist and show you how to do that with those SDKs in the meantime. until we get that functionality into the CLI. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so we will end the webinar right now.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us at support@flywheel.io, and we can get the other questions also answered if there are any.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you at the next webinar.